Hello?
For 27 years, I dreamt of you.
Who is
I craved you.
what?
I missed you.
Uncle Remus? What's going on, everybody? Jared here, and I'm back from vacation. I have that pine smell still in my nose. I was out in Oregon, visiting a few buddies, but don't worry, I was still hitting up the movie theater, and I went out and saw the sequel to the old toilet clown film, It Chapter 2. The evil clown Pennywise returns 27 years later to terrorize the town of Derry once again. Now adults, the Losers Club must come together to destroy the shape-shifting Pennywise once and for all. So does It Chapter 2 bring all of the toilet terror from the first? Let's find out. But before I get into my thoughts, let me know what you guys thought of this sequel and if it stood up to the original. Now let's get into some of the good. It Chapter 2 kicks off from the opening 5 minutes of this movie. I mean, it's aged up, it's more mature with the scares, the loser clubs, the theme, the messaging in this movie, and I think that that's kind of what I liked about this movie. You know, it's dealing with these adults rather than the kids. The first movie was dealing with this coming-of-age story. This one is dealing with kind of the demons from their past. Obviously, they're going back to Derry, and they're dealing with Pennywise, the old toilet clown. But in a weird way, it's dealing with kind of, you know, the roots, where someone's from, dealing with the past, overcoming that, and then kind of living for the future. And in a weird way, that messaging, even though it's a horror film with a decent amount of comedy, I actually like that messaging of these main characters, the Losers Club. And talking about the Losers Club, I loved the chemistry, or I guess lack thereof chemistry, which sounds very weird, but I mean, it opens up with them basically being these, you know, it's a high school reunion. They haven't seen each other for a long time. It's very awkward. It's very short. They don't know what's going on. And then after a few drinks, you know, a few conversations, everything kind of coheses and they come together in this great kind of group dynamic. However, the movie does unfortunately split them up into a bunch of different ways because that's the way it plays out. But the times that they are together, I thoroughly bought that they were friends, and I love the banter that they threw back at each other. And out of this losers group, obviously Bill Hader, he is the standout in my opinion. He is funny, he is charismatic, and again, the scares, he plays into all of that. So I thought that his transformation from Finn Wolfhard to Bill Hader was great. He kept those comedic chops, so he was the standout for me. But also closely followed by him was the character that played Eddie, who was played by James Ransone, I believe. I mean, the character transformation from this young kid to this adult, again, that was perfect. And you know what? This whole movie, the casting director needs to be given credit because the transformation of these kids to these adults was honestly perfect. You could not have gotten better casting. Going back into the group dynamic, the only other standouts are kind of James McAvoy and Jessica Chastain, just because they're big names. The other loser members are kind of character 1, 2, and 3. They don't really stand out, especially Ben. I mean, he's a lot better looking from his younger self, but that's about it. Rounding out the positives for me in Chapter 2 are actually the unsettling scares, and again, kind of tying into that more mature, aged-up themes that are in this movie, like the scares. I gotta say that this movie was unexpected. You know, the first trailer, there's that long played-out scene with Jessica Chastain and the old woman, and personally, I thought I knew how that was gonna play out, what was gonna happen, but emerging from the shadows, I was scared, it was unexpected, it was unsettling, and that's what that unsettling feel is throughout this movie when Pennywise is doing his scares. So props to them on that part of that front of the movie, because it is scary. I thoroughly enjoyed It Chapter 2, but the one thing that hindered a bit was the movie. It's about 2 hours and 45 minutes. It felt a bit bloated. Not the runtime, believe me, this flies by. You were invested in this movie, but coming from about a 1,000-page book, there's a lot of material that they need to cover, and I'm not saying it's strictly exposition, but they hint and point at little tiny things that you have to infer. You almost have to fill in the blanks. And lastly, it only happens a couple times, but the tone, I felt, was a bit inconsistent. I mean, obviously this is a horror film, but there are these comedic elements, but the tone shifts so much into that comedic realm that I didn't know if I was watching a horror film or a comedy film, because there's one moment that just seems completely out of left field, almost like it was a placeholder and they forgot to fix it in editing, and I absolutely loved it, but it felt inconsistent. I mean, it was almost like this.
Just call me angel of the morning, angel.
Overall, It Chapter 2 concludes the story of the Losers Club and the old toilet clown Pennywise. It's got much more mature tone, superb performances, and these unsettling scares that I mentioned earlier, but with it feeling a bit bloated and inconsistent tone here or there. I'd recommend checking out It Chapter 2. This is a wonderful follow-up and conclusion to the first chapter, and in a weird way, I want to see a 5.5, 6 hour version of these movies just mashed together like a director's cut. I think it's coming, but I would love to see that. In closing, I'm going to give It Chapter 2 4 out of 5. My knives! So what did you guys think of It Chapter 2? I want to know in the comments down below. Anyways, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. Watch some more videos up there, you know, movie reviews, trailer reactions, fun comedy skits. I'm doing that, you know, brand new movies and nonsense video podcast. There's more episodes coming up that with great guests. Stay tuned for that. Follow all of my social media down there. Click that subscribe button. It really helps me out. And until next time, I'll see you later.